Are you still dealing with pests despite the fact that you've used a million different organic and even synthetic? What if I told you there's a way to get rid of slugs, snails, flea beetles, thrips, aphids, all of it without a single chemical and completely based on mechanical manipulation of your garden? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here today. I've got a total of 5 different methods that you can use very easily in your garden to make it so that the pests don't even show up, let alone see signs of them whatsoever. Number 1 is going to be raised beds, and that goes without saying. So this is one of my favorite raised beds from Vigo. It's not connected to the earth at all. It is completely elevated. The key to that is that things like slugs and snails are unable to climb up the sides and get to your plants. It also helps to keep out critters like voles if you have issues with them. Now, here's the thing. The bed doesn't have to be that high. 12 inches seems to be enough for this. If you do have issues with voles, however, and you need to put an in-ground bed in, I would get some 1/4-inch chicken mesh, the little tiny square ones, and actually put it underneath this bed. It's way better than landscape fabric. They can't chew through it, and it's not going to interfere with the soil's connection to Mother Earth, which is what we want and need in a lot of cases. So here's the thing. Flea beetles thrive in this environment. And that environment is bare soil with little to no mulch and very minimal plant debris. And so that translates into exactly what Ashley has done here. And that particularly goes for things like radishes, turnips, anything in that brassicaceae family. One of the hidden gems when it comes to raised beds, such as this Vigo or any sort of container, or even some of those galvanized steel, if it's tall enough, is actually that the soil is much warmer and toastier than anywhere else, such as an in-ground bed. And what this can mean is less fungal pressure in some cases. Okay, let's talk number 2, and that's tillage. You guys know that I think every tool in the toolbook when it comes to gardening is valid, and that includes tillage. I actually advocate for it in some cases because it's absolutely necessary. But what if I told you one of the reasons why, or one of the times I won't suggest tillage, is actually when you have some pest pressure? Okay, so there's actually 3 things that happen when you till that work to your detriment when it comes to pests. Number 1 is that tillage will redistribute and kick up new weed seeds. So if you're sick of weeding, what you need to do is actually go to a non-tilled bed, because that will eventually stop those weeds from coming back up. It takes years, but it's still possible. Number 2 is actually that you're disrupting the soil to the point that you're destroying all your predatory beetles, nematodes, spiders, you name it. And what those are predatory insects that go in and clean out the soil via destroying eggs, or in some cases, adult pests. Even fungal spores will be eaten by these, etc. and so forth. And once we wipe those out, obviously it works to our detriment. Now, they will come back, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need them right at the beginning of the season when you just took them all out. 3 is actually the fact that when you till, you have a fresh smorgasbord of food for both aphids and thrips. So if you have issues with aphids and thrips, tillage is not your friend. It's literally like the milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, but my tillage brings all the boys to the yard, or bugs to the yard. Et al. In 2000 actually proved this through a study. And they determined intense tillage directly correlates with destruction of predatory insects. So it's a known fact that this is the case. And that was done in 2000, so it's recent-ish. Is that recent? Maybe not. Oh my God, I'm old. So what's the tactical tip here if you do want to go for no-till because of pest pressures? Well, number 1 is very light soil disturbance. You need to disrupt the soil in some capacity to be able to get good seed-to-soil contact. And you're going to obviously disrupt it when you go to transplant plants outdoors. And if you're thinking to yourself, no, I need to definitely not disrupt the soil at all, just based on what you've heard me say in this video, then what you want to do is go up. That can involve, in a majority of cases, because it just makes sense, your compost that you normally would top dress with, that 1/2 inch, that is going to be what you seed into. So you'll seed at the soil level and then put that compost on top. Don't overdo it though. We've had this discussion many a time. Behind me here is one of the beds that the Geek Crew knows I've been battling with for literal years, and it is looking absolutely gorgeous. And the reason why I battled with it is because it has really tough clay soil. It's incredibly hot and dry, and overall it's just a big pain in the butt. Now you're Ashley, the Geek Crew ringleader. to our detriment, has some beautiful tiger lilies in this bad boy. And now I have lily beetles. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's talk about lily beetles. I want to say this is probably one of the #1 comments I've been getting lately. And that's because it's very recently set foot and hold here in Saskatchewan. Now, the answer to things like lily beetles, flea beetles, potato beetles, and even aphids is the food source. Every single pest out there has a weakness. They have a kryptonite, and that kryptonite is their host plant. They need that host plant either to feed off of or to reproduce on. And your options when it comes to controlling this through host plants is #1, to trap crop them. So you're going to make a very intense location. For example, radishes, plant a whole bunch very close together, make a little mound of them, wait till all the pests go to attack it, then kill it with fire, literally with a tiger torch. And that will annihilate a small portion of the population, which will then allow you to go in and plant radishes without that really intense flea beetle pressure. So that's #1. The other way to manipulate host plants is to either not plant them at all, but that's obviously not a great solution if you're a gardener that wants to plant lilies, but actually is to put mimics or plants they absolutely detest in that space. For example, daylilies are not a fan favorite of lily beetles, and peonies and a whole host of other ones I have here in the garden that I planted because of this reason. So, for example, I've got some hostas, peonies, salvia, poppies, tulips, everything surrounding my tiger lily. Now, the idea here is that we're confusing the predator. So we want to confuse it with different types of foliage, different types of scents. We almost want to disguise that host plant whenever possible, particularly if we don't want to go in and have to squish all the lily beetles, because that is the actual solution, is to like crush all the eggs, crush all the adults. And then there's like maybe one, remind me to put the link in the description or in the comments if I forget. But that's like the only way to control these buggers. And Dr. Doom only works on like the babies, not the adults. So the adults you have to hand remove. Now, I think you've heard this tale 1,000 times, and it's been backed up by so many studies. One example is in 2019. They showed that crop rotation actually reduced pest pressure in the form of fungal or even insect or bacterial up to 70% when proper crop rotation was incorporated. That's one's really tough for gardeners, particularly gardeners that don't have a ton of space. So for me, crop rotation in this environment is near to impossible. So if you're running into that issue, it may be time to consider removing the host plant entirely, not planting it because your whole garden is infested, and then forgoing it for 2 to 3 years. That's usually the safe bet for everything to kind of die back population-wise before you go and introduce them again. But one grouping that they found this very effective with is the tomato and the potato family. It is like 6 a.m. I'm trying to film before people wake up because I have to film on weekends. And I'm tired. My Tim Hortons hasn't kicked in yet. The other issue is that you may be straight up just feeding them without the host plants even present. For example, if you're overwatering, slugs and snails will be your best friend. If you're over fertilizing, meaning you're putting way too much nitrogen in particular in, you're making soft, malleable tissue that things like flea beetles, thrips, and aphids will absolutely thrive on. Bare open soil, flea beetles, absolute landing pad, signaling to them, here's your landing pad, literally. Yeah, monocropping. If you are doing rows upon rows upon rows of, you actually have a higher risk of amplifying that issue. So what you may want to do is a row of potatoes and then a row of carrots. I don't know what you would put between them. Something, you put something in there. Companion planting, I could do a whole video on it and why it is very misunderstood as to how it works. But anyways, just put whatever you want beside each other. For the most part, it'll be fine. Okay, so this next one is probably the least free one out of all of them, and that is actually using predatory insects. So this can come in a number of shapes and sizes. Nematodes is one. And these can destroy slugs, snails, ants, thrips, wirewort, fungus gnats, not that they cause any issues. Literally, it's a plethora of things that these nematodes will actually go in and eat. You can get grubs, and you don't have to just get nematodes. There is like a ton of different beneficial insects and microbes out there that will absolutely dominate your space. So if you're going and thinking, okay, the soil tip's not going to work, the host plant tip's not going to work, Changing the environment, I've tried it, it's not working. Your last step is the predatory step. And what you need to do is you need to type in predatory insects to Thrips. And then a whole bunch will pop up, for example, ladybugs. And now you know to go order ladybugs, because that is possible if you go to your local garden center. Trust me, it's possible. You just have to ask. And then you throw them in there. And before you say, oh, well, they're just going to fly away, I'm going to feed the whole neighborhood. They won't if you have enough pest issue. They are not going to leave the free buffet to go find a new one if there's enough food here for it. So if they move on, it means that the pest pressure has decreased to the point that it can't sustain the population that you have added. That is good. That means that's good. That works in your favor, not against it. Geek Crew, you have to let me know in the comments down below what pest issues you deal with. Weeds, fungus, bacteria, insects, whatever it may be, and exactly how you combated that without any form of spray, organic or synthetic wise, because these tips and tricks enormously help people out.